Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Disney. Disney's CEO Bob Iger is in a terrible spot right now. He created it. He deserves it. He refused to listen to fans, and he decided his judgment was more important than the judgments of the people that cared about the individual Disney brands. Didn't care what the people who loved Star Wars had to say. Didn't care what the people who loved Marvel had to say. He had to go off on his own and decide what he thinks brands should really be all about, what he thinks characters should really be all about. And that's where he ruined himself. I've been listening to interviews that Bob Iger had back in 2020. I'm going to give you the link to the interview. It's an article also covered in the Wall Street Journal. He was so confident. He was so on top of his game. He had completed the acquisition from Fox. Everything looked like it was going in the right direction. However, if he had just listened to what Star Wars fans were saying or what Marvel fans were saying, who cared about the brands and the characters for decades, he would have known they were headed for massive trouble. And you will see when you compare that interview to some of his recent interviews, he is absolutely beside himself, hysterical right now. He is not happy with where things are, and he's well aware that Disney is going to need to be torn apart for it to stay in business and keep its head above water. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so if you can subscribe, please do subscribe. The reason we have to cover this story is because now it's in the Hollywood Reporter. It was recently also in the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal story, which is a pretty extensive story. Bob Iger isn't having much fun. 8 months after returning as Disney's CEO, he's straining to put out fire after fire, including streaming losses, an activist investor, and TV woes. Everything that Bob Iger built at Disney, and he completely transformed Disney into a woke mess, yes. But more than what you're thinking of. Yes, they had ABC, but the acquisitions of Pixar, Fox, Marvel, Lucasfilm, it was a lot to digest, way much more than they could digest, and also much more than Bob Iger could competently manage. This article just came out in Hollywood Reporter, and Hollywood Reporter is more significant even because it's talking about the entertainment industry. Bob Iger might resign just on the basis of health issues. Wait until you see his prior interview in the Wall Street Journal. He was not anywhere like the way he is now. Coming from the Hollywood Reporter, unpacking Bob Iger's terrible, horrible, no good PR week. Many in Hollywood hope the re-up Disney CEO, long considered the corporate leader most in tune with talent, would emerge as a level-headed mediator who could end the labor impasse. And then he spoke his mind. You see, Bob Iger just doesn't have time to solve Hollywood's problems. He doesn't have the state of mind for it either. What he's contending with at Disney is an absolute nightmare beyond nightmares. Everything they're working on isn't going well. The theme parks aren't going well. Even the cruise business isn't going well. From Forbes, washout as Disney Cruise Line reveals a $325 million loss. And everybody thought travel was doing so well. It's not doing that well. These are multiple lines of business that are having unique issues, each of them, that Bob Iger was never qualified to be in charge of. It's not like he ran ABC and was a CEO at ABC. Michael Eisner had said he didn't think Bob Iger had what it took creatively to be in charge of brands at Disney. And now Bob Iger is in charge of brands at Disney. He's in charge of theme parks. He's in charge of film production. He's in charge of streaming, which is extremely challenged as it is right now. In fact, they don't even really know what the business model should be for streaming. When you don't know what the business model is for the business, you better have a really strong visionary in charge of that line of business. They don't have anything like that at Disney. Disney needs to sell off huge chunks of its businesses as quickly as it can, and that is what they're trying to do. It's not just about raising cash. Yes, they need to raise cash to meet certain commitments. There's multiple ways a business like Disney can do that. They don't really need to sell parts of their company to raise cash. They need to sell it before the mismanaged business units become a complete, uncontrollable, unmitigated disaster that's impossible to hide. And that's why Bob Chapek had to leave. He wasn't able to kind of cover up what wasn't working so well at Disney the way that Bob Iger is still able to do, but it's taking everything he has left in him to try to do it. What possessed Iger to pick such a place and time to express his disappointment with the demands of the striking talent guilds? The striking talent guilds have absolutely, apparently, no idea about how much trouble Disney is actually in. It's not even just losing money on the films. That's $1 billion plus or minus. Disney is a $160 billion company. They could lose a few $1 billion a year and still be worth a lot of money. It's that the structure of everything is completely falling apart. Not only was Iger at the gathering known as, quote, Billionaires Camp, but just the day before, Disney announced that his contract was being extended to 2026, meaning his estimated net worth of $690 million in 2019, according to Forbes, was going to go up by millions. A question about the strike was completely predictable and so easy to deflect. Quote, I won't discuss an ongoing labor dispute, but I hope we reach a fair settlement soon and get back to making top-notch entertainment. He could have said something like that. Now, he was at a conference called the Allen and Company Conference, the Sun Valley Conference. That's a conference that's been going on for a few decades now. Now, internet guys go there, but it was primarily an entertainment and finance kind of conference where people made major business deals. The reason that Bob Iger had to announce that he was being re-upped as CEO and he was going to be in place for at least another 2 years was to let everyone know, hey, look, I'm authorized to start discussing transactions with you, and I'm the one that's going to decide basically if something's going to go forward. He needed it because Disney needs to make deals, and they need to make these deals very quickly. Instead, Iger expressed frustration that the guilds were not, in his view, grasping the problems facing the industry. Quote, there's a level of expectation that they have that's just not realistic, he said. And they are adding to the set of challenges that the business is already facing that is quite frankly very disruptive. It's possible Iger believed he could play the role of an affectionate, well-regarded kind of parent to the industry whose words might chasten the guilds. Quote, Bob no doubt thought through when to speak and what to say, says the Disney veteran. Maybe he felt he had to put it out there. Yet this person concedes that Iger wound up choosing a poor backdrop. Iger's focus does not seem to be talent relations right now. Every time they make a new movie, they seem to lose money. So it's not like they really need to negotiate to give those people more money right now. Iger would like to let everyone else handle that problem. His problem is raising billions of dollars while he sells off pieces of a company that he shouldn't have gotten so aggressive about acquiring. If he acquired Fox to get a hold of Hulu, why didn't he just acquire all of Hulu, spend what he needed to spend, and then work on Hulu instead of having to now have Disney work on Hulu and market Hulu at the same time they have to market Disney Plus, at the same time they're trying to figure out what to do with ESPN Plus, and then bring ESPN off the cable channels in joint ventures with other sports leagues. It's absolutely beyond convoluted and beyond complicated. A few days later, SAG-AFTRA's Fran Drescher struck back using the kind of disparaging language that Iger can hardly have heard before. Quote, there he is sitting in his designer clothes, just got off his private jet at the Billionaires Camp, telling us we're unrealistic, she said. How do you deal with someone like that who's tone deaf? Are you an ignoramus? Meaning, are you stupid? By then, the waters had already gotten rough for Iger, who acknowledged in the CNBC interview that many challenges facing Disney were greater than he had anticipated when he returned as CEO in November. Says a longtime associate, he has never felt this level of stress in his career. Even before Iger sat down in front of the cameras, there was a wave of negative press, the likes of which has never been faced before. The day his contract extension was announced, positioning him to bask in the congratulations of the billionaire campers, the Wall Street Journal ran an article that not only highlighted the daunting troubles that Disney faces, but stated ominously that Iger's grace period with investors was clearly over. Just 8 months into Iger's second tenure, that must have seemed like a very unwelcome dose of Wall Street impatience. By then, Iger had to also be aware of a longer piece coming in the Journal the next day. Noting that the Disney CEO was straining to put out fire after fire, the piece said Iger privately blamed Bob Chapek for some of the company's problems. But the article traced some of Disney's biggest challenges to decisions Iger made during his first stint at the top job, from 2005 to early 2020, including the 2019 acquisition of Fox Entertainment assets and his decision to enter an arms race over streaming. Now Iger's hero phase was being re-examined in the paper that literally has Wall Street in its name. And it didn't stop there. The article used the phrase tone deaf in reference to Iger a full 4 days before Drescher got there. It mentioned that Iger had been criticized in some quarters for showing up at the Met Gala and courtside at NBA games while Disney was slashing staff by the thousands. That report even noted the Marie Antoinette detail that he'd been showing off a model of a new, bigger yacht that he has in the works. No one would like this kind of coverage. Given Iger's thin skin, he might be the person who would like it the least. One source who knows Iger well saw his comments about the Gills and CNBC interview as angry and self-pitying. Iger built Disney into greatness in large part through a series of acquisitions: Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and Fox, which may have been a bridge too far. Now he has to put a possibly for sale sign on certain Disney assets, including ABC, the place that launched his career. Then he had to scramble to explain to the people who work in those divisions that he really values their contributions. CNN reported on Iger's awkward attempt at making amends at a July 18th offsite meeting. These are raw, highly emotional times, says a longtime Iger associate. He's just laid off 7,000 people. He's not a cold, callous, cruel guy. That's hard. He's gotten forced by dissident shareholders Nelson Peltz and Ike Perlmutter to do this deep cleaning of people. He's been forced to cut content. None of these things is fun. Acknowledging the recent missteps, this person isn't ready to declare Iger the sequel hopelessly off track. Quote, never underestimate Bob Iger, he says. He could still have a transformational move. Bob is a master. While some may wonder if he's lost a step, others may think he's 6 moves ahead. There are some people that definitely think Bob Iger is 6 moves ahead. I've seen conversations on CNBC where people have said, oh, well, it's Bob Iger, it's Disney, of course they'll figure it out. But the problem is they're not going to figure it out. The fatal flaw for Disney was ignoring what different groups of fans thought about their intellectual properties. But not just different groups like, oh, there are all kinds of different people that like The Little Mermaid. The core people who represent the core interest for each of your multiple and different brands are the people you need to make sure are happy with what you're doing. There's a new Barbie movie that came out from Warner Bros. Discovery. That movie might do $1 billion in business. It's their first big hit for the new management of Warner Bros. Discovery. They didn't greenlight that movie. They didn't put it together creatively. They put it out. They had plenty of other failures since that movie. They'll have plenty of other failures after that movie. But for the people that are interested in Barbie, the fans of Barbie don't lie. If they like the movie, then it's satisfactory to the fans. Maybe they should have gone a different direction and shown a different relationship between Barbie and Ken. There were other ways of telling the story. All those things are possible, but the creative team that they put together on the Barbie movie was successful in pleasing the core Barbie fans, enough so that there's tremendous word of mouth about the movie. It's done more than $300 million already worldwide, which is phenomenal. And that will be very profitable for Warner Bros. Discovery and the entire relationship that Warner Bros. Has with Mattel. In the case of Disney, they've been wearing out all of their brands. They're not really able to launch a new successful brand. And there's a terrible hangover because of the woke agenda that Bob Iger put into all of their brands. Everything at Disney has this horrible extra poison injected into it that make people not even want to give Disney or any of the brands controlled by Disney a chance. Universal doesn't have that. Warner Bros. Discovery doesn't have that. Paramount doesn't have that. It's all Bob Iger's fault, and he's finally being forced to pay the price. I will make sure that there is a link to this Wall Street Journal article from 2020 where you can hear him in an interview. You have never heard Bob Iger be that confident since he came back to Disney. You could listen to any interview. Bob Iger is a very wealthy man, but he is under tremendous stress, tremendous pressure, and he is paying the price for the horrible thing he did for not respecting what the Disney brand and all the other brands that Disney controls are all about. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.